News Tonight, Supreme Court affirms Yahaya Bello as Kogi State Governor, dismisses PDP and SDP's appeals. Aviation workers protest against federal government's plan to concession airports. Presidential task force on COVID-19 cautions states on reopening of schools. Inspector General of Police says his officers will be neutral during Edo and Ondo governorship elections. And Sudan signs peace deal with rebel groups to resolve unending civil conflicts. Plus, business, sports, and later from our studios in London.
On Business News Tonight, Naira strengthens against the dollar at the parallel currencies market ahead of Central Bank of Nigeria's forex sale to Bureau de Change operators.
On sports news, Lionel Messi opts out of FC Barcelona training as he begins quest to leave the Catalan Giants.
The Supreme Court today affirmed the re-election of Governor Yahaya Bello, the All Progressives Congress candidate in Kogi State. In a unanimous judgment read by Justice Uwani Abba Aji, a 7-member panel of the Apex Court, led by the Chief Justice of Nigeria, dismissed the appeals filed by the People's Democratic Party and its candidate, Musa Wada. The Apex Court also dismissed the appeal of the Social Democratic Party's candidate, Natasha Akpoti, on the grounds that they lack merit.
This wonderful, resounding statement from God Almighty through the justices of the Supreme Court means a lot to me and the good people of Kogi State, and indeed the youth and the young generation of this country. It is a call to serve and do more for our people. By the special grace of God, we will continue to do more for our people in the area of security, infrastructure, fighting corruption, and to ensure that we lead with fear of Almighty God. Moving forward, I call on my brothers and sisters, those who contested with me. The victory is all ours because we are citizens of Kogi State. We all have the best of the interest of Kogi State at heart. But today, the people spoke. God Almighty have really affirmed this assertion by the people. I will continue to do my best to ensure that across the divide and across the party line, we continue to unite the great state of Kogi.
You would just listen to the governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, describing his victory at the Supreme Court as a call to greater service. He was speaking there at a news conference in Abuja just shortly after the Apex Court upheld his election as governor of the state. But the Supreme Court, as we mentioned earlier, did affirm the re-election of Governor Yahaya Bello, the All Progressives Congress candidate in Kogi State. The court dismissed the appeal also of the Social Democratic Party's candidate, Natasha Akpoti, on the grounds that it lacks merit, as well as the appeals filed by the People's Democratic Party and its candidate, Mr. Musa Wada.
The Supreme Court premises was devoid of the usual spectacle that is associated with matters of this nature. Inside the court, only lawyers, journalists, and a few supporters were granted access. Disputes on the governorship election started with the candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, filing a petition at the tribunal on December 7, 2019. On May 18, 2020, a 3-man panel of justices headed by Justice Kashim Kaigama dismissed the petition of the Social Democratic Party, SDP, and 5 days later, the tribunal also dismissed the petition of the PDP. Not satisfied with the decision of the tribunal, the candidates of the PDP and the SDP approached the appeal court. On July 4, 2020, a 5-man panel of the court, led by Justice Adamu Jauro, dismissed both appeals. Determined to exhaust all judicial options, the PDP and the SDP took their prayers to the Apex Court. For about 2 hours, Justice Uwani Abaji read the judgment on behalf of the 7-member panel of the Apex Court, led by the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Tanko Mohammed. She was the only judge who sat to deliver the judgment, and she dismissed the 2 appeals.
There was a lot of industry, a lot of scholarship, and a lot of erudition that went into the delivery of the judgment. But bottom line, the judgment is a confirmation of the will of the good people of Kogi State, which they expressed on the 16th of November 2019.
The PDP and its candidate, Mr. Musa Wada, had formulated 5 grounds of appeal, which includes allegations of rigging, overvoting, and violence in some of the local government areas in the state. The court held that the PDP could not prove these allegations of electoral malpractice in the November 16 governorship election.
I've learned a new thing today, that pleadings can now be abandoned in a brief of arguments at the Court of Appeal, not at the trial court, even when evidence is left. So, as lawyers, we are now learning a new jurisprudence. This is the first I'm learning it, and I have learned now.
Now, for those who came up short at the Supreme Court, the People's Democratic Party and the Social Democratic Party have reacted to the court's judgment on the 2019 Kogi State governorship election. In a statement, the PDP expressed shock at the judgment, saying it fell short of the expectation of the majority of the people of Kogi State and Nigerians. According to the PDP, the judgment failed to inspire hope in the quest to ensure violence-free elections. On her part, the SDP candidate, Natasha Akpoti, says she is not surprised by the judgment and that the court has only legitimized what to expect in 2023.
Basically, I'm not surprised and I'm not disappointed, but I am saddened and extremely worried. I'm not surprised in the sense that I have already observed the trend of the electoral judgments in the past few months and have seen that they were not based on merit. However, they tend to tilt towards the favors of the ruling party, which is APC. And why am I saddened and worried? I'm worried because the Supreme Court, being the apex, the topmost court in the hierarchy of courts in Nigeria, have actually set back our democracy, eons of progress backwards. And what the Supreme Courts have done, in my judgment, considering the fact that SDP was not on result sheets and a lot of malpractices that took place, what this judgment has done is it has actually legalized the non-observance of the Electoral Act and the Constitution with regards to elections. And what it has done is actually legalized violence. We expected that institutions like the judiciary and the police should have put their very best, having taken into cognizance our experiences over the years, that it should have at least made this a litmus test to say that, yes, in this century, we in Nigeria is ready to set a standard for democracy for other countries to follow. But right now, I think we're just a laughing stock.
And now to aviation, where workers in the sector today embarked on nationwide protests against the federal government's decision to concession some airports in the country. The staff, under the auspices of Association of Nigerian Aviation Professionals and National Air Transport Employees of Nigeria, insist that the concessioning will lead to loss of jobs in the industry. Our correspondent Bukola Joe Ketumbi has a report.
Members of the 4 aviation unions alongside representatives of the Nigerian Labour Congress embark on a peaceful protest around the major roads linking the Muritala Mohammed Airport in Lagos. The work caused traffic gridlock on some roads within the airport as vehicular movement was impeded. The unions say the manner in which the Minister of Aviation, Senator Hadi Sirika, is going about the proposed concessioning of some of the country's major airports is not in their best interest.
We made it clear to the Honorable Minister that concessioning of airports has a lot of problems. And we propose solutions. We say we are not saying don't do concession, but we give you options. We said, why don't you cooperatize fund? Float fund into the capital market. Fund can generate its fund to run the affairs of its airport. We have the capacity and manpower to manage these facilities to world-class standard.
Members of the union in Abuja are not left out as they are joined by the Nigerian Labour Congress President Ayuba Waba in the exercise.
This is just an appetizer.
Apart from the fear of job losses, aviation workers are also kicking against the government's directive to return all staff that retired from the 1st of April 2014 to PENCOM for payment of retirement benefits. At the Ilorin International Airport in Kwara State, the situation is the same. Union workers are up in protest, wondering why the cash cow airports are listed for this exercise.
If you are a private businessman, you want to maximize profit. And the best way you can maximize profit is to do what? You reduce the number of staff. Okay, if this fund has been taken over, who takes care of the remaining airport? Who pays the salary?
In Kano State, staff of the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria also joined the protest. They say they're fully aware of their losses if government has its way. The concession of airports has had a long history. The only successful concession is that of the 13-year-old Muritala Mohammed Airport 2, which was designed as a build, operate and transfer project. This airport has been a subject of controversy, sometimes legal, between the Federal Airport Authority and the operator Bykotni Aviation Services. Over the years, industry experts have alleged that the major problem with attempts to concession the airport has to do with the fact that those who want to midwife the program are not ready for a transparent process. Bukola Joe Oketumbi, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, organized labor in the country is also kicking against the planned concessioning of the nation's major airports. This position is affirmed in a statement from the national president of the Nigeria Labour Congress, Comrade Ayuba Waba. According to the NLC, the concessioning move contravenes Chapter 2, Section 16 of the 1999 Constitution, which stipulates that the Nigerian government must manage and operate the major sectors of the economy. Mr. Waba says Nigerian workers are concerned over the security of their jobs owing to the massive layoff of workers that characteristically follows a concessioning of national assets to private sector. The NLC insists that organized labor will resist the concessioning and calls for dialogue between government and labor on the matter. In part two, after the break, Buhari inaugurates APC's executive legislature consultative committee as they agree not to tolerate appointees bringing disrepute to the administration. Join us again. Welcome back. If it has joined us, watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Supreme Court affirms Yahaya Bello as Kogi State Governor, dismisses PDP and SDP's appeals. Aviation workers protest against federal government's plan to concession airports. Presidential task force on COVID-19 cautions states on reopening of schools. Inspector General of Police says his officers will be neutral during the Edo and Ondo governorship elections. And Sudan signs peace deal with rebel groups to resolve unending civil conflicts. Our website, channelstv.com, has more information on our top stories and others. Subscribe and watch Channels Television's live stream on YouTube and other social media platforms using your mobile device browser, or download the Channels TV app for Android and iOS devices from their respective stores. You can also watch us via your smart TV platforms on Apple TV, Android TV, Fire TV, and Roku. We're staying with the issue of airports concessioning, this time the view of an industry expert, Mr. Agbenga Olowo, who believes this is the best decision if Nigeria must develop its aviation infrastructure.
My view about the concession plan of government as at today is the right way to go. We all know that when private people do things, it is cheaper, it is more efficient than when government does it. Governments have been doing it, and in their wisdom, they are ready to give it to private hands. Leave infrastructure challenges to public hand. That is why we're saying, government is saying, I am leaving public infrastructure development to private. And government is doing public-private partnership in 50 key areas, 3 only or 4 in aviation. I'm not mouthpiece for government, but I think it's the right way to go. We are concessioning the terminals of Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, and Kano through public-private partnership. They're bringing their capital.
He adds that the fear of the workers is justified in the face of what happened to ex-staff of the Nigeria Airways, but is optimistic that with the existence of the Infrastructure Concession Regulation Commission, this exercise may likely be different.
The only regulation that we have today, ICRC, to make this happen. Thereafter, hand over to Nigeria CAA. So, if you look at the case of Nigeria Airways, what happened to the workers was very bad after the liquidation of the airline. But under this experiment, I want to trust and I want to believe that the workers concerned would be well handled by the commission. What happens to the workers after? What happens to the workers during? And what happens even before? Where to start will be to access the situation of the workers. How many do they have? The fears of the workers are justified because sanctity of contracts in the past has not been very good. How should the process go? ICRC has laid down process. All they have to do is to carry all the stakeholders along, stage by stage, advertisement of what they want to do, transparency in handling matters, sanctity of the contract. That's the way it should go.
Local contractors who claim they have executed validly awarded contracts in various federal ministries, departments and agencies are asking the federal government to pay them their dues. The protesting contractors today marched to the Federal Ministry of Finance to make their demands. They explained that in spite of verification of their contracts by the Presidential Initiative on the Continuous Audit, the Finance Ministry is yet to commence payment for those affected.
For the second time this year, contractors who are being owed various sums of money staged a protest at the Federal Ministry of Finance. Defying the early morning rains, they make their demands, one of which is the prompt payment of their money.
We are reliably aware that our anti-corruption president, President Muhammadu Buhari, has released since last year and approved multi-billion naira to pay local contractors of these liabilities based on PICA's verification. But Madam Zainab Ahmed has chosen to withhold and delay this payment. We are once again calling on the president to mandate this Minister of Finance, to pay local contractors now, or else we will remain in this protest and hunger strike before the eyes of the globe.
Every day they continue to say we are...
One of the contractors says he's about to lose his home to the banks who funded the contract he executed because he has defaulted in repaying his loan. This, according to him, summarizes what each of them is going through.
People are dying. My house is now on sale by the bank. Bank is now to sell my house. If they sell my house now, will I live outside? Will I live outside? Many have died. Many people have died. I have a proof of the letter I wrote to her. I've written her a letter telling her I say mother. I will show it anytime, any day. Not that I've not taken any step.
After some minutes of protest, the Director of Human Resources appealed for calm before leading them to a closed-door meeting with the Permanent Secretary.
Okay, so let's have some quiet.
A representative of the contractors then briefs journalists on how the meeting went.
So they now said that local contractors should give them between now to 2 weeks to 2.5 weeks to begin to settle these debts. That they have concluded the last section of the verification, and that now they are now ready to start paying the local contractors from 10 million and downwards, beginning from 2.5 weeks today.
The protesters promise to return if they do not get paid after 2 weeks, as assured by officials of the Finance Ministry.
Despite the separation of powers, every government must speak with one voice to deliver promises made to the people, and a synergy between the legislature and the executive will not erode the National Assembly's primary function. They're the words of the Senate President while addressing State House correspondents after President Muhammadu Buhari inaugurated the Executive Legislative Party Consultative Committee at the State House, Abuja. Our correspondent, Kayla Megwa, reports.
Bring a program made for Nigerians for you to direct me.
The executive and the legislature have in recent times been embroiled in a series of disagreements over investigations and policies.
Do you want to meet his South? Approach me on South? I have not. You have? I have not. Mr. Chairman, you have approached me.
It's okay. The Senate President believes the disrespect of the National Assembly must stop.
Mr. President made it very clear that he is not going to accept or tolerate any of his appointees doing things that are not respectable, things that have no dignity to the National Assembly. For us in the National Assembly, I think what has happened has happened. And I pray that nobody goes to the National Assembly to do the kind of thing that some people did before.
What has been most interesting is that these disagreements are between lawmakers and executive appointees who so happen to belong to the same party, the All Progressives Congress.
Nobody wants to talk to you without camera and have nothing to hide.
While these exchanges have been interesting to watch for many, the presidency believes this is detrimental to the growth of the country and the success of the party. In fact, President Buhari blames these internal wranglings for the loss of some seats in parliament.
We are here to make sure such occurrences do not happen again. We must now ensure regular consultations between the party and the governments.
The committee being inaugurated is called the Executive Legislative Party Consultative Committee. And as the president said, it will ensure proper consultations are made regularly before issues are tabled before the Nigerian people. This all sounds good on paper, but what impact will this have on the separation of powers and the checks and balances needed for democracy to thrive?
They must have that feeling that there is interdependence in their functions or roles. And until they realize there's that interdependence, there will always be problems, because the separation of powers is simply to ensure that none becomes a terror.
Nigerians will be the beneficiaries of the outcome of this synergy, whether it is good or bad. So, it will be wise to pay close attention. Checks and balances can work alongside speaking with one voice of the government. However, that very delicate line that will lead to a rubber-stamped legislature must not be crossed. From the State House in Abuja, Kayla Megwa, Channels Television News.
And with the president's task at the National Assembly done, one of the visitors at the presidential villa today was the General Overseer of the Redeemed Christian Church of God, Pastor Enoch Adeboye. The church leader immediately went into a closed-door meeting with the president. Others present at the meeting were the Vice President, Professor Yemi Oshibajo, and the Chief of Staff to the President, Professor Ibrahim Gambari. Although details of their meeting were not made public, there are speculations it could be related to the recently signed Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020, otherwise known as CAMA, but there is no confirmation on that. And as the Edo governorship election approaches, the Inspector General of Police, Muhammad Adamu, has been meeting with civil society groups. Mr. Adamu insists the police will remain apolitical during the September 19th, 2020 election. The CSOs, led by the Executive Director of the Policy and Legal Advocacy Center, Mr. Clement Wankwo, are seeking collaboration with the police to ensure the passage of Electoral Offences Commission Bill by the National Assembly.
View of the nature of what we've been hearing already coming out from Edo, where the main political parties, the two political parties are there fighting themselves, violence, movement of arms and ammunition here and there. We've changed our deployment strategy from what we wanted to do. We have now escalated to a level that we believe will help us conduct the election so that a free and fair election can take place and a level playing field is created for everybody to vote whoever they want to vote. We will remain neutral, we will remain professional, we will never allow our officers to side anybody or any group of people.
In previous elections, we have had instances of fake security men turning up at elections. We would, in the course of the conversation, be asking the question specifically how this intends to be curbed. But it is often a concern and allegations have already been made. We know that some of the allegations are sometimes intended for political purposes, but we know that the leadership of the police has indicated an important commitment to non-partisanship, and for us that is really key. IG, you had given leadership to the police bill that was in the National Assembly, and we're very delighted to have worked with you to the point where it is today. We believe that the need for an Electoral Offences Commission is imperative, and would urge again, IG, that you take the leadership in pursuing that the National Assembly passes an Electoral Offences Commission, which everyone has shown commitment to, whatever political divide or whatever side of the political divide they believe in. So I know it would take longer than Edo for this to happen, but we would be very happy to work with you to pursue the passage of that bill as well.
Well, the news at 10 returns. Naira strengthens against the dollar at the parallel currencies market ahead of central bank's forex sale. We'll have that in business news. Please join us again. Welcome back. In politics, the contenders for candidates of the All Progressives Congress in the Edo governorship election, Pastor Osage Izeyamu, has promised to pursue developmental policies that will ensure the transformation of Opela town and mineral-rich communities in Edo State. Pastor Izeyamu made this promise during the APC campaign rally to the 4 wards in Opela Esako East local government area of the state.
It's the turn of Opela, one of the 3 main towns that make up Esako East local government area of Edo State in south-south Nigeria. The All Progressives Congress, hopeful of occupying the government house, touches down here, and the people are expectant. People in this community know exactly what their needs are as the APC campaign crew seeks their vote.
The roads are very, very bad. We need a very good road in this our community. We don't have a government hospital here, like General Hospital, we need it. And also, our schools, many schools in these communities, we don't have teachers.
The 4 wards of Okpula are going to be delivered to APC. I'm a member of the PDP, but we have tested Governor Obaseki, and we have seen that he has not taken care of our communities. You have gone around Okpula, you've seen the bad roads and all of that. Apart from this one, which was done by Oshomole, nothing has done in this community. So we are saying that on the 19th, we are going to speak with our tongues.
By the grace of God. The APC governorship candidate responds to these requests and promises to do even more.
If we elect APC, things go change. I said things go change. I get many friends who pass even brother for Okpila. She not going to allow me tell them say I be governor. Not Okpila put. We not put hospital for Okpila. We not put job for Okpila. We not empower the women. By the grace of God, if I become governor, I say we develop Okpila.
The APC campaigns across the 4 wards of Okpila town, promising to bring in a new lease of life to the community, but says it'll need the people to first vote the party into power in order to transform these promises into reality.
Meanwhile, the Edo State Governor, Mr. Godwin Obaseki, insists that bad leadership in past administrations is largely responsible for what he describes as underdevelopment in the country today. Mr. Obaseki made the assertion during the PDP campaign rally in Umo, the local government area, as part of the party's electioneering ahead of the governorship election following a 2-day break.
A rousing reception for the PDP campaign team led by the flag bearers in the September 19 governorship election, Governor Godwin Obaseki and his deputy, Philip Shaibu. We must go down again and again. Let's go, Godwin Obaseki. Are you ready now? After a short break, the campaign trail is back on the roads. It's the turn of Nwode local government area. The rally kicks off in Eho, Ward 1. The weather shows hints of rain. This did nothing to dampen the spirits of the PDP faithful. The PDP believes that its candidate, Governor Godwin Obaseki, made the right move by dumping the All Progressives Congress (APC) that brought him to power. The campaign council chairman, Dan Obi, insists that Mr. Obaseki left because he refused to do the bidding of APC leaders who did not mean well for the people.
This election is about our political liberation. On this mission to rescue Edo State from the hands of those who want the governor to share the money, he is heavily supported by his deputy, able, capable.
Governor Godwin Obaseki corroborates this claim. He adds that corruption has been the bane of democracy in Nigeria, leading to a slow economic development.
It is time to make a clean break from the past, to stop the influence of godfathers in our politics, and put the people first, and use the resources of the people for them, and to respect the people. Because you are in power because of the people. If the people didn't vote for you, you will not have power. So why do you get to power and believe that the people don't matter? That is only you that matters. That is what is at stake in this election. It is not about Godwin Obaseki. It's about the future of Edo State.
The PDP is confident that the warm reception witnessed at rallies suggests that the electorate have already made their choice. This will be confirmed by victory on election day.
Away from politics, the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 is asking state authorities to tread with caution on the planned reopening of schools. At today's briefing in Abuja, the chairman of the task force, Mr. Boss Mustafa, said the committee welcomes the call for reopening of schools, but that Nigeria is learning from the experience of other countries where reopening led to an increase in the number of cases. He noted while it is heartwarming that Africa is recording the lowest number of global COVID-19 cases, Nigeria must not drop the ball in the battle against the pandemic.
The PTF still urges caution and vigilance on the declining numbers because the virus is still potent and very dangerous. This position is informed by the fact, in spite of our enhanced testing capacity, the number of samples collected for testing have not been very encouraging. As we plan to reopen more sectors, we must stay the course and stick with our winning strategy, which is anchored on the ability of our health institutions to contain the virus, while we as citizens wear our mask properly, stay away from crowded places, avoid mass gatherings, maintain simple hygienic practices, and as much as possible protect the elderly and most vulnerable to this pandemic. It is in the above context that the Presidential Task Force appreciates the ongoing calls for reopening of the education sector. And indeed, some subnationals are already making preparations for such. Whilst the PTF does not discourage making such preparations, we need to be guided by experiences from countries such as Germany, France, the United States, and the UK, where opening of schools in some cities led to an increase in confirmed cases and fatalities.
We're back to politics with the issue of zoning the presidency back in focus in 2023, which has been generating controversy as we look ahead to the upcoming elections in that year. Among those who insist it is not necessary is the chief whip of the Senate and former governor of Abia State, Orji Kalu. According to Senator Kalu, the presidency is an open basket for anyone willing to contest. He was speaking in Minna, the Niger State capital, after meeting with former heads of state, Generals Ibrahim Babangida and Abdulsalami Abubakar. On the issue of insecurity in the country, Senator Kalu says there is sabotage in the security system.
Parties have every right to say where their candidates of election will be. But in APC, we have no issue of zoning. Anybody can contest for election, anybody can do anything. It's not in the constitution of APC. So as long as it's not a constitutional matter of APC, the president is an open basket where anybody can fight. Security is a big challenge to everybody, and I'm sure we are going to be addressing the issue with other of our colleagues, because these security challenges have defied any solutions, and I'm sure the president must be very angry about what is happening, because one is a known general, army general, top class general, and former commander-in-chief also. So I seem to see a lot of sabotage, and we will address the issue of sabotage.
Let's check in on the day's major business stories. Here's Teniola Shobowale.
Thanks, Amarachi. Welcome to Business News. The Naira is firmer against the dollar today at the forex market as currency holders begin to offload their holding ahead of the resumption of forex sales by the central bank to bureau de change operators. Traders say the local currency unit strengthened by 2.6% to 465 against the dollar at the parallel window and rose by 0.02% to 385 Naira 67 kobo at the investors and exporters window of the FX market. The CBN had on August the 27th announced that it would resume gradual sales of foreign exchange to licensed BDC operators with effect from September 7th. Meanwhile, the president of the Association of Bureau de Change Operators of Nigeria, Aminu Gwadabe, says the resumption of foreign exchange to BDCs is expected to bring some stability to exchange rate at the forex market. Now, Pioneer Pay TV service provider MultiChoice says it will carry out upward price adjustments for subscription of its DSTV and GoTV packages with effect from tomorrow, September the 1st. A statement released by the company says the decision was made after careful consideration of the market and a review of its business operations in the country. According to the statement, numerous factors which led to the upward review in subscription rates include Nigeria's inflation rate, which currently stands at 12.82%, the highest in 27 months, as well as increased content and operational cost. However, the Chief Executive Officer of MultiChoice, Mr. John Ube, says the company has made efforts to keep this year's tariffs manageable by effecting the increase in subscription prices on some of the bouquets, while the lower bouquets have been left untouched. Mr. Ube further explains that the price adjustments will allow the company to keep delivering top-quality entertainment experience to its customers, while the package will continue to be available at varying pricing points to allow subscribers flexibility in price and choice without compromising quality or variety. Well, in line with traders' expectations, the stock market ends the last day of August in the green, up by 0.07%. Temple Ashaju tells us more.
Well, thank you for joining us on the Stock Market Report. Equities managed to commence the week positive by 0.07% as marginal gains in Dangote Cement and Lafarge Wapco helped to moderate the sell-offs on major banking stocks. While investors continue to lock down funds in dividend-offering stocks such as Boa Cement, UPL and Red Star Express PLC, the announcement of a delay in results filing by UBA and Stanbic IBTC Holdings put off investors' interest in Tier 1 lenders that are expecting the CBN to approve their results just as the 60-day window for filing closes today. Now, despite ranking as the most actively traded stock for the day, a cross-dealing on the shares of UACN worth over 425 million naira didn't amount to price movements. But the uptick in today's trading session puts the market's month-to-date performance at 2.57%, while the year-to-date losses moderate to 5.64%, just as the market resumes a new month, September 2020, tomorrow. And that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Temple Ashaju.
Thanks a lot, Seniola. Still ahead on the news at 10, Sudan signs peace deal with rebel groups to resolve unending civil conflicts. Plus, more stories from our London studios and around the world in 5. Stay with us. A historic peace agreement has been signed by Sudan's 5 key rebel groups and the government. Signing the deal were the Justice and Equality Movement and Mini Minawi's Sudan Liberation Army, both of the western region of Darfur, and the Sudan People's Liberation Movement North, led by Malik Agar, present in South Kordofan and Blue Nile. The deal hopes to end decades of conflict in the country and region. Here's Simon Pusey with more international news in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The first commercial flight from Israel to the United Arab Emirates has landed, marking a major step in normalizing relations after the announcement of a peace deal. The plane carried a delegation of Israeli and US officials. The UAE has become only the third Arab country in the Middle East to recognise Israel since its founding in 1948. The agreement to normalise relations brokered by the US was made public in a surprise announcement on the 13th of August. Coronavirus cases in the US have soared to nearly 6 million, representing almost a quarter of the world's total. The milestone comes amid rising infections in some Midwestern states, including Iowa, North Dakota and South Dakota. However, across the US, the number of new cases to be reported daily has dropped since record levels in July. Meanwhile, in New Zealand, lockdown has been lifted in the city of Auckland and schools will be allowed to reopen after restrictions were imposed on the 12th of August. But social gatherings will remain limited to 10 people and masks will be mandatory nationwide on public transport.
What I'd like to ask again is what we've asked all the way through, a bit of kindness. A bit of smiling with the eyes behind the mask. Remember that Aucklanders have been bearing the brunt of this latest wave. And just to treat them with the thanks and the care that they do deserve while we all continue to get through this together.
Because that's what's happening in Portland.
US President Donald Trump and his Democratic rival Joe Biden have clashed over the violence that has erupted at protests in Portland. Trump has blamed the Democrat mayor of Portland, Ted Wheeler, for allowing the death and destruction of his city. But Mr. Biden said the president was recklessly encouraging violence. It comes after a man was shot dead in Portland on Saturday, as elsewhere in the city, a pro-Trump rally clashed with Black Lives Matter's protesters. Sudan's Prime Minister has said the signing of a deal with rebel groups is the beginning of the road to peace. Abdallah Hamdok has dedicated the agreement to children who were born in camps after being forced from their homes and to their parents. It comes after Sudan's transitional government signed a peace deal with 5 rebel groups. After more than 17 years of conflict, the accord marks a significant step towards resolving deep-rooted conflicts from the long rule of ousted leader Omar al-Bashir. The leaders of the groups signed the deal, including 4 from Darfur, where more than 300,000 people are estimated to have been killed and 2.5 million displaced since 2003. There is some skepticism, however. Previous peace agreements failed to hold, and 2 key rebel groups did not take part in the signing of the new deal. A man who inspired a Hollywood film about the 1994 Rwandan genocide has been arrested for leading what is called terrorist movements. That's according to local officials. Paul Rusesabagina became well known after Hotel Rwanda depicted his efforts to save hundreds of Tutsis at his hotel during the genocide. He later launched an opposition party which had an armed wing in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Rusesabagina was arrested in the capital Kigali under an international warrant. Further details about the accusations he faces have not yet been released. The exiled Belarusian opposition leader Svetlana Tikhanovskaya has been invited to address the United Nations Security Council on Friday. She will speak via video link at the invitation of current member Estonia. Tikhanovskaya was forced to leave Belarus after losing to veteran leader Alexander Lukashenko in this month's disputed presidential election. Pro-democracy campaigners have been demanding for Lukashenko to resign for weeks. Family members of some of the thousands of disappeared Mexicans have marched on Mexico City's Zocalo Square, calling for justice and the return of their missing relatives. More than 75,000 people are currently missing in Mexico. That's according to government statistics. The grim number underscores the rights abuses suffered since the country began a militarized push against drug cartels. This exhibition shows shoes belonging to the missing to represent the amount of people who have disappeared in the country. And finally, Lady Gaga has dominated this year's MTV Music Awards with a series of impressive outfits, masked performances, and 3 early wins, including Artist of the Year. Lady Gaga changed costumes multiple times throughout the ceremony, which varied from an exotic bird to a bright green ball gown, all accompanied by exaggerated custom-made face masks. This was the first major US awards show to take place during the coronavirus pandemic.
This has not been an easy year for a lot of people. But what I see in the world is a massive triumph of courage. Stay safe, speak your mind, and I might sound like a broken record, but wear a mask. It's a sign of respect. Thank you.
And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel studios in Lagos.
Kaizer Chiefs have confirmed Daniel Akpe has been ruled out for the remainder of the 2019-20 Premier Soccer League season after suffering a concussion. Akwe suffered a head injury in their defeat to Bidvest Wits at the FNB Stadium over the weekend. A six-time Ballon d'Or winner Lionel Messi missed FC Barcelona's first training session of the new season days after his shock announcement that he wants to leave the club. Messi's failure to show up for the session, the first under new coach Ronald Koeman, was widely expected after the 33-year-old Argentine also failed to show up for a pre-season medical on Sunday. And that's a wrap in sports news.
And as we gradually end the news tonight, the Kaduna State Ministry of Justice has criticized allegations in a petition to the Nigerian Bar Association against Governor Nasir El-Rufai. In a statement, the Commissioner for Justice, Aisha Diko, insists the state government upholds fidelity to the law. According to the Attorney General, the state government has no idea of the whereabouts or has any involvement whatsoever in the reported abduction of Abubakar Idris Usman, also known as Daddy Yatta. And the main news again, the Supreme Court today dismissed the appeals filed by the PDP and SDP challenging the victory of Governor Yahaya Bello as Kogi State Governor. Thanks for staying with us tonight. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Good night.